right, so we're going to move on to our digital transition panel discussion. This is where we do want everyone involved that wants to chime in, but this is where we're going to come back to the discussion of the overall digital transition, and mostly with an eye towards what do you think the future is going to look like, based on the fact that everyone sort of is agreeing and now that normal is long ago and it's almost feels like decades ago now, and it's kind of been left in the dust. Where are we going, so to speak? And Sandra, I'm going to give you a little break for a second because you probably need a little bit longer of a breather. And I'm going to introduce Samantha and Dr. Keisha. Samantha Dushirer, I hope I said your name right, Instructional Technology Coordinator, Jacksonville North Pulaski School District. Hello, Samantha.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good to have you with us. And we also have Dr. Keisha Tillman, who's the assistant principal from Lloyd E. Almond Elementary School in Cumberland County. Hi, Dr. Tillman.
Hi, is everyone? Glad to be a part of this panel discussion.
Yeah, really good to have you. Okay, so let's do this first. Let's have Samantha go first, and then you, Dr. Tillman, just introduce us to your district's posturing right now, kind of what's happening, and then we're going to start mowing down the questions between all three of you. So go ahead, Samantha.
Yeah, this has been interesting in Arkansas. We, I think, had a little bit of a later start on it than some states. They sort of last minute announced that we were going to push school back a week, and then we pushed school back a week, and in that about a 2-3 week span, we decided that we were going to offer a virtual academy option for our students. So a lot of planning was sort of compacted into a very, very short time, which I think we all took part in one way or another. And so it sort of ended up, we sort of have two different virtual academies running. So we ended up having two separate virtual academies. We have a K-5 virtual academy and a 6-12 virtual academy. The K-5 virtual academy, we got into planning a little bit earlier, and with K-5 we have a little bit more play with their schedules because we knew that our enrollment was going to be low anyway. So we actually dedicated 2 teachers to each grade to just do virtual in K-5. So our K-5 system right now is they have the option to come on campus, but they can also be entirely virtual. If they're entirely virtual, they're part of what we call the Elementary Virtual Academy. And they will have like A through M, and then would be the first teacher of first grade, and then N through the end of the alphabet would be the second teacher. And they're running synchronous and asynchronous lessons all day, every day. So we have them at one of our school sites, and we have them 3 to a room. And they're set up with their computers, and they're working all day, every day, just virtually, totally. Our secondary, which I'm sure everybody else on the call knows, the scheduling in secondary, if you're trying to think of how you're going to do virtual, is just a whole new bear. And I don't think we knew how many kids we were going to have who wanted to do virtual entirely. We typically, like, it's not a district where we get a ton of responses on forums and things like that ahead of time. And so we had a very low response. And then when we actually opened the virtual academy, we had a very high, large group of kids come in for 6 to 12. So like right now, I'm stationed at the high school, and the high school, we have like less than 50% of the kids chose to come to campus. We're sitting at about 52% are virtual. They are currently trying to run simultaneous classrooms. So they're trying to cast what they're teaching and then have the virtual kiddos log in and then essentially do an asynchronous activity after the lecture and teach the kids in the room. This is not great, I think. I worry about it a lot. It stresses me out a lot. I really don't think that you can do 2 things well at the same time. And I also worry about the workload immensely, lots of worries. But at the end of the day, you know, we had 2 weeks to figure it out, and scheduling with all of your different classes. And we also have academies. So we have all of those different classes. And then within those classes, we have different academies. And within those academies, we have different focus areas, and so it's just this whole crazy mess. So our 6 to 12 right now is a very, very busy day for their teachers as they are casting while they are teaching. And they're putting, essentially, we are lucky enough to be one-to-one on campus as well. So our students at home have devices, and so do our students here, so they can provide the same materials for them. But obviously that's a lot to put on a teacher. So
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, so that's what we are looking at in Jacksonville. It's been an interesting journey. We definitely, pretty much up until like right before school started, we were on the whole, we're going to go back to school normally train, and then the virtual option came up. So
Fun for the whole family, we like to say. Yay.
yes.
All right, Dr. Tillman, give us an intro.
Absolutely. I too experienced similar events like Samantha just described. I'm actually from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I work in Cumberland County schools. We're about 87 schools with an additional 2 virtual schools added this summer. So we got 89 schools. We have about 51, it's teetering between 51,000 children that we serve. And of course, it's been hustle and bustle all summer, dialogue back and forth with administration and central services, along with parents and teachers. Everyone's concerned. We went through a number of events in terms of switching around administrators, having parents discussions very frequently, like maybe once, maybe twice a month, and that's not normally how we do things. So it's been a lot of parent dialogue, a lot of surveys going out, temperature checks for the whole county. We in turn, like I said before, started the 2 academies, and it's been very adventurous, I will say. We've had to relocate students because, based on parent need and wants from the option, we call it option B, and that was the parent's choice if they wanted to remain at school and be on alternating weeks, 1 week at school face-to-face and a week home with virtual learning. So we went through that avenue probably about a month's time with that type of discussion and dialogue. But what eventually happened is that our Board of Education decided that it was too risky with the numbers of COVID cases, the instances occurring in our schools, with our colleagues, with students. We too experienced many deaths, unfortunately. And so based on the numbers in our county, it was decided that we do virtual until they'll come back to the table until January, and then let us know, when they reconvene, whether or not we can do that Plan B option, alternating weeks for cohort students. It's been a roller coaster ride. I mean, in terms of the social and emotional aspect of it, it's nothing new that we have addressed, but because of the circumstances that we're in, it is definitely heightened. So we are really trying to come out of the box to address, to me, education is in a state of emergency. So we've had to come out of the box and come up with some very innovative, some very creative things in order to make sure our students are highly engaged in these online learning classes. Teachers are not overwhelmed. Parents, as much as we can, try to manage that piece as well and help to get them to transition as best they can with parent classes and the things of that nature. Like I said, it's still an ongoing process, but we have been in our county able to address that trauma-sensitive student and the needs that have been heightened due to COVID. I mean, seriously, we've always said that we had to address the Maslow before we can do Bloom's, okay? So with that understanding, we know that there are priorities that we have to put in place and recognize and address in order to take care and tackle that academic side of education.
Yeah, so that brings us up to the next question. I'm coming back to you first, Sandra. We'll sort of do this round robin wise. We had an earlier discussion today about the lost year with one of our earlier speakers. And it's our contention as the Learning Council, just looking at all the research and sort of the maneuvering nationally of everyone that we're talking to at this constant ongoing tour. This is a lost year. We might try to say we're attempting learning this fall and into spring, but the disruption of time and space and form and what the teachers are doing, what the students are doing, some of the students are AWOL, all other stuff, it's causing us to sort of say as the Learning Council, listen, you know, be prepared to not be punishing when the scores come in off of testing again, because that's wrong. In a moment when, like, attention wise, it's hard to just even arrive because you've changed the entire form and structure, and mentally you're struggling with the reformation into the digiverse of your structure of learning. That alone, it takes a while to get used to. So by the time you actually arrive for the learning, we're looking at next year, right? And then we've lost a year. So what are you guys talking about internally about that aspect? Because your states are going to be, you know, punishing with regards to, like, you got to get it done anyway. And you guys are like, are you forming like a riot yet? Because, you know, I feel like we should. So because that's just that's what's going to come down, and we need to love with the students right now, right? Like that's just job one. So over to you, Sandra.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because recently I got the information about not only about state testing, which shocked me because I thought we can't be doing this. You know, it's like I couldn't believe that it came across. But then the other side was, you know, observations and student growth objectives and all that stuff that we do in the state of New Jersey. And I was like, I know for me personally, because not only do I do the IT work, I also do supervise the media specialists of the school district. So I have to do observations and everything else. And I was like, this is a lot of things that are put on a teacher's plate. And it's not like, say, for instance, I don't understand why we need to do it, because I know that there's accountability. We need to ensure that, you know, our students are getting what they're supposed to be getting, because, you know, we are accountable not only to our community, but also to the state and the taxpayers of the federal government, et cetera, et cetera. But it is to be honest with you, it's a kind of a hard pill to swallow, to know that this has been additionally added to the structure of our instructional process. To be honest with you, I'm quite sure most of our school districts, and I know even my school district, will step up to the plate. We will find a way of how to get it done. I've said this for years, especially being that I came from being a teacher. I used to be a business and computer science teacher in high school. So coming from the teaching perspective, I always say that teachers are the most creative people I have ever met in my life. They do things that they come up with some, I hate to use the word out of the box, because out of the box sounds so cliche. There's no such thing as out of the box when it comes to the teacher, but they come up with some stuff that just literally blows me away, that I never anticipate. They come up with ideas and concepts and way of doing things that, you know, even with this pandemic and what we're doing now with the virtual learning and the concept of hybrid learning, it's amazing how great some, you know, I know it's been hard. Some teachers are really having a hard time and struggling, but it's been amazing for how some teachers have been able to deal with it. But at the same time, you know, to actually have this other thing there that you required because of accountability, it's actually like we're placing another thing on their plate. And one of the discussions that I participate in Twitter chats, and one of the discussions I was having was, what else can we do? It was an ed camp leadership that was being done over the weekend. And one of the things was, some of us as administrators and also some of the teachers that were a part of it was discussing how can we reach out to teachers and find out, what can we help them with? Reach out to them and says, okay, is there something basically that you have that possibly me as your administrator could kind of take from you from off your plate so that way you don't have to be doing it. But then at the same time, I don't know about any of those of you are here who are actually administrators on this panel. I'm almost looking like I always tell people I'm treading water, and the water is pretty much close to my neck. So because I'm treading water, me reaching out to my media specialist and saying, okay, how can I take away a portion? It means that there's a possibility I might have to drop something on my side in order to take care of that. But my biggest thing is to checking in with my staff. I always reach out to them and say, okay, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And stop and listen, not just get into my agenda of discussing stuff. I stop and I say, okay, let's talk a little bit. And I actually have a department meeting coming up. And what I'm going to do is use the first 15 to half hour, them just being able to talk to each other and not make any. I'm going to make my agenda only have 2 items on it and just let the rest of the agenda them talking to each other. Because I think they need that. They need that outlet to discuss, who's drinking wine tonight, who's not drinking wine tonight. You know what I mean? Who's maybe going out for a walk? How many miles did you do this week? Just for them to have some sort of downtime. But as far as basically on the academic side, I know that somewhere along the line, our teachers will figure out a way of how this works. Because like I said, they're the most creative, imaginative, innovative people I've ever met. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I've also worked in business. I came from a business background before I went into education. So I don't think business people have any idea of how innovative and creative teachers are. If that was the case, I think every business owner should hire a teacher. Because if they want things to be different, they need a teacher. Because teachers know how to do it. So that's my soapbox. Sorry about that.
Well, thanks. Well, Samantha, I think you're chomping at the bit to talk about this whole lost year concept. What are you thinking?
I think for me, Dr. Tillman mentioned Maslow before Bloom for our students. And I think my biggest thing has been we need to do that with our teachers too. Because our teachers at the end of the day, like Ms. Paul said, our teachers are going to be creative, trust the people that we've put in these positions during this time. My whole job has essentially become just providing support for them on whatever they need. All I'm doing, I'm checking in with them as much as I can. I'm eliminating a meeting that could be an email, and I'll email them and be like, please enjoy your time. Please enjoy your time. Feel free to leave campus early and go home. Because I know, and I'm also trying to change the language, because I think we're so often, especially in schools, which is strange to me, we're so often about how accountability is being there. And so I'm very much so trying to change the language that accountability isn't being here right now. Because what you're not seeing is that, yes, a teacher might want to leave 20 minutes early to get 20 more minutes with their kid, but I guarantee you they're going to go home. And when that kid goes to bed at 7:30, they're back on their computer until 11, 12, midnight. This switch has essentially meant that teachers never go home. They can't leave their work to grade in the classroom and go back to what they're doing. And a good teacher is going to come up with those innovative ideas that Ms. Paul was talking about and is going to just continually work at them. And so they're going to be putting in all of these hours. So my whole thing has just been trying to change language, trying to change how we use time. Do we need to have this meeting? Can we send an email? Do we need them to stay until, the final end of their contract time? Or can they just go when they're done? At this point too, there's transparency, right? The one beautiful thing that I've always talked about with Google and Google Classroom is there's transparency in everything you do. So accountability wise, I'm your admin, I'm on your Google Classroom. If I want to check that you're accountable, I don't need to see that you're sitting in your classroom until the end of your contract time. I can go into your Google Classroom and see everything you've done and post it. So I'm trying to move us away from more archaic ways of talking and thinking, and really getting everybody on board, because I find that, like, especially during times of stress, people hold on to those things that they're really used to, right? Like, they're really used to certain things, like we're supposed to be in our rooms during the school day, and that may be like the hill that they decide they want to die on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, during times like this, it's all different now. Like, we've opened Pandora's box, everything's crazy. We're gonna have to, we're moving with it. We're gonna have to change our terminology. We're gonna have to change our mindset, and we're also gonna have to give our teachers more autonomy, because that's what's required of them right now. There is no way for them to accomplish the things we're asking them to accomplish during their contract time.
Right.
If they're gonna
And
do
that's
it, if they're gonna do
actually
it well.
for a while, right? That's even
Yeah.
before quarantine. Yeah.
But now it's very obvious for everyone to see. So I'm hoping that, I'm trying to think with a positive mindset and think about the things that when things get a little bit more normal, things that we can reflect on and learn from and continue to use and steward from here on out. And I would like to have that idea of teachers work all the time. There's an accountability that's just them being teachers. Maybe the accountability piece isn't them sitting in their classrooms when they're supposed to be there. Maybe that's a thing that we can let go.
Yeah.
Move on with.
I'm with you. I'll lead that charge. We're done with that. Just tell everyone Leilani is the Edgy Jedi Grandmaster, and she said so. So it's over now. Just go move on. Okay, Dr. Tillman, let's go. And then let's have your comment. Then we have somebody else who has their hand raised. So let's, I'm sure you have a lot to say.
I do. I mean, I am an administrator, and I've been one for 5 years now. So didn't start that way. I started out as a teacher in the classroom. But my perspective is, I think the world has forgotten, or maybe they're now understanding the importance of teachers. There's no way I can do my job without them. I mean, none of us, we wouldn't be here if it had not been for teachers. So to me, accountability comes with the position. It does, it just does. In my role, I'm there to coach. I'm there to set up for wins for the entire school, and it starts with the teachers. Right now, we're worried about self-care. We want to make sure that our people are sustaining themselves, are taking care and managing their own households. I mean, to even, and I'm a mother of 3, so I'm thinking about other teachers who have to not only teach, but manage their children on the side. So that is the priority right now. So with the lost year, it is what it is. We're in a pandemic. Never seen it before. I've never lived through one. Very first one for many of us, if not the whole world, you know. So that, to me, the priority is taking care of our people. To me, that's my job. What I try to do to alleviate some of their issues is weekly newsletters. I too don't believe in having meetings after meetings when it can go into emails or video. I can make a video for them. We do with instructional coaches and of course our principal, we do weekly updates. Anything that comes down the pipe from the county in an update sheet that's attached to the weekly newsletter, that's attached to the calendar. So you have that one-stop shop for everybody in the school. We try to alleviate as many issues as possible. We have a helpline. So the helpline is not only for students and parents, it's for teachers as well. So in my role right now, I am really concerned about sustaining our teachers, making sure that they have everything they need. I want to be the best coach I can be. I want to celebrate them. I want to be there when they need to just vent. That is my role right now. That is my priority.
That's excellent. Excellent. Okay, so we did have a comment. Will Dayenport, you're self-muted. So Will, you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question or make your comment?
My question, I guess, is what do you do with teachers who see where we are right now, but they're questioning everything, and to the point of they don't want to try to teach online. They don't want to try best practices. They don't want to do the work to get better at it. You know, one of the things, as you mentioned earlier, you talked about how, well, we were planning to come back face to face. Now, I don't know why school districts were doing that, because between May and June, the numbers went up higher than when they shut everything down. So a lot of school districts absolutely failed to come back to school online because they didn't teach the teachers. They didn't look at their IT department in terms of infrastructure. They didn't do a lot of stuff. And all of a sudden, when you're told we're going virtual or we're going hybrid, you're like, oh, what do we do? But you have between March until June to figure out a plan. And then you have teachers that when you work with them and you say, okay, these are best practices for creating a digital classroom, or, you know, your school district has invested all of this money, whether it's ESSA or CARES money, they've spent all of this money, and then you still have teachers doing what they want to do. What do you do with those teachers? Not in a way to penalize them, but in a way to sort of get them to understand that the normal that they thought is gone. We are in this digital transition, this digital transformation, and the way you think about teaching and learning has to change.
Yeah, good observation. Dr. Tillman, let's go reverse order. You go first.
Absolutely. That's a good question posed. I believe, I believe in hands-on. Although there have been many documents, many procedures, many things from our county that's been rolled down to our teachers in terms of their instructional practices, I make myself available at all, as much as I can. I won't say at all times, but as much as I can to walk those teachers through. I mean, even in the form of PLCs, I want to leave no stone unturned in terms of making sure that I am available, our coaches are available, our principal is available to help whoever teacher it is that needs that additional assistance. I want to make sure that I provide them every avenue to take, in terms of getting that help, that assistance that they need. And if that means one-on-one coaching, that's what I'm available to do. Now, when all those resources have been exhausted, then it's time to look at something else. But I want to make sure that I provide every opportunity for that individual teacher to participate in order to get the help that he or she needs. In terms of their instructional practices, because we sink or swim. I mean, we really, at this time, we can't afford to have any, what they call it, missing links or chains. We can't have it. I mean, so we have to provide those opportunities for everyone so that we all can get that win. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah. All right, Samantha, your answer to that.
I'm the same way. I mean, in my position, I'm kind of weird because I'm technically a district-wide administrator. So I'm not at a building. I'm over all the teachers. So we have over 350 teachers. So I'm technically over all of them when it comes to instructional technology. And so for me, I try as hard as I can to just provide a positive culture and a culture of support. I have to obviously work very hard to leverage myself since there's one of me and over 350 of them. So that I found creative ways to do that over time, and luckily I've set some of those up. I have extremely good relationships with all of my principals, so that's my biggest bread and butter right now is talking to my principals and my assistant principals and just having a good enough relationship with them where they can text me and be like, hey, I need you to come check on Miss Jones on Monday or Tuesday. She's going to need some help, and I'll pop in. I'll do whatever I need to do with my schedule to make sure I'm there. So having those relationships with principals and leaders who are doing what Dr. Tillman's doing, where you're seeing them and coaching them and seeing them in person and being available to them so that they can leverage me is important. Additionally, my sort of passion project when I came into the district was I created a ed tech, like professional development cohort every year. So every year we have one, it's called the Fly Closer program. And they work on leadership and then also like advanced pedagogy when it comes to ed tech. And so what happens is it positions them to sort of be leaders in their school sites. So I rely on them a lot as well. So that works well for me because I have those as sort of teacher leaders in their sites. Because you're going to have certain teachers who aren't going to come to me, they're not going to come to their principal, but they might come to the room down the hall, right? So I have them, I have principals. I'm kind of trying to just talk to everybody all the time and observe who needs that help. Because at the end of the day, Dr. Tillman's right. I mean, we've got to come together right now, and you've got to provide as many supports and scaffolds as possible. And I think the other thing too here has really been, there is always in every district, I've worked in districts across the nation when it comes to ed tech consulting, there is always a big discrepancy between your people who really know tech and your people who don't, right? There's a huge discrepancy between that, and it's always there. But I think that teachers typically are very proud of how they perform in their job. And so I think a lot of the reason that we have people who are have such a rough time with tech is because they're embarrassed to talk about it. So right now, the other thing is, how do we identify those people who are struggling and they don't want to be seen as like deficient in their job? Because they're not. It's just not a skill set that they had or worked on. I've seen some absolutely incredible teachers who've taught math and science and social studies in ways that I never could without technology. So it's finding like little ins with them, and then also just making sure that I'm very careful with all my language. Like I send out emails all the time about tech support and helping people and reaching out to people. And I think that my language and the way that I refer to it is very, very, very important. I'm relentlessly positive. Like, I'm not like, hey, I do not say, does anybody need any help? I'm like, who wants to learn something super cool and awesome today? Come on down. Like I've tried to avoid the whole who needs help. I try to avoid like, what do you need help with? In my position right now, it's like, I'm going to come in and I'm like the song and dance, and I want to give you all of the positive things that you want to learn so that you can feel better when you leave the room. Because like Dr. Tillman says, I need to set up a win for some of them. Because if you've been struggling with tech and this is happening, this is going to be so much more stressful for you. It's a whole new level.
Right. I think what I want to take away as a nugget for that for you, Will, is she has a plan for teachers to be local instruments. And the dynamics of that is peer pressure. Which is different than top-down pressure. Use that. Are you still there, Will? I know you're a district instructional technologist too, but I like that. I think that's kind of sexy because, you know, people are personally competitive.
It works really well. Like it's because I can celebrate and amplify all the things that they do too. So like our social media is like, look what this Fly Closer member did. And all the other teachers are like, and then when the initial virtual learning happened, they were like the most incredible, because I have about 3 at every school site now. They were the most incredible help because they did all of they made a grassroots teacher help site. So they went through and talked to their own staff and identified what, like my staff's having trouble with using Canva, or my staff's having trouble with creating Google HyperDocs. And so they went through and they made screencasts. So it wasn't me telling other teachers how to do things. It was them telling each other how to do things.
Good. Okay, good. Will, did you want to say something there too? And then I'm going to go to Sandra.
No, I'm just listening. You know, it's been interesting to ride this ride. I've seen some great things, but then there are teachers who, even when you sort of say these are some best practices, right? They're like, well, I'm going to do this. And I said, well, that's between you and an administrator. It got nothing to do with me. But I have a job to do, and I'm very passionate about what I do. And when I just see someone says, well, I'm just going to do what I've been doing, we're not even in that situation now. It's frustrating. And so I just say, okay, well, you know, that's between you and the administrator, and I wish them well and I walk away. But I just want to know, like, when people sort of retreat into what they've been doing, and we're not even, you know, we're not in that situation now. That's why I want to know, like, what do you do with those people who are like, my hands are up, I'm not even trying to listen to what everyone is telling me.
I understand, and I'm going to say you love them anyway, but let's go to Sandra. And Sandra, your answers on that, because I'm sure you've seen this.
Yeah, I have. And not where I am right now, but in my previous school district, I actually also oversaw the instructional side. When I first came here, I did both the instructional and the infrastructure. But now, because I have an assistant director that's really great, he actually is kind of taken over that side of my position, which is great for me because it actually frees me up to be able to do some of the other stuff. But just like Samantha and Keisha said, how am I pronouncing that right? Am I pronouncing your name correctly, Dr.?
It's Quisha, Dr. Quisha Tillman. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking all of us as being on this panel as being hopefully developing relationships here. So because of that, I hope you don't mind me using your first name. But the reason why, one of the things that happens is that, yes, we try and find as much support as possible for our teachers, no matter what we did. And I used the same method, Samantha, in my previous school district. I actually had one teacher that oversee all my teachers as being the person that actually did instructional tech. And what we did was celebrate, we made it a peer pressure situation where the peer pressure from one to the other. My position at this present time is still to provide as much help as possible wherever I can. Even though I don't really do as much with teachers, I tend to do it a lot more with the support staff. Actually, I've been training our custodial staff how to actually use email the past couple of days. So, because things have changed, we're not really in face-to-face as much as before, and things are definitely moving to more on the electronic side. But with our our assistant director of instructional technology, he has a group of teachers that he had over the summer that he recruited. And with them, I don't know if you guys saw it in my presentation prior to this panel discussion, one of the things I talked about was a T3, and that group actually, did workshops the entire summer to bring our teachers on board and making sure that, up to speed on what we're doing with Google, as a Google school district, also some of the other resources we did with, say, for instance, like Newsela and BrainPop and, Nearpod, all those different things. He, with these himself plus two other teachers were part of the process that kind of trained our teachers. And because we had the YouTube channel and a lot of the recordings are there, so they can go back to it at any time, that they need to. One of the things that, if a teacher does need help, I'm not going to walk away and say, okay, well, gotta wait until he comes along or one of the other teachers. I'm going to help him out in any way I can, especially if it's something that basically I've had experience in using and that type of thing. But I would say that one of the things is that, maybe using the peer pressure situation, because I know it worked in my previous school district, how come you're doing this? And, that type of thing. And then I can tell you one of the things that has happened to me, both in where I am now and in my previous school district, is a lot of times I've introduced like the new technology and stuff like that. And teachers who might have been on the verge of retiring stop their paperwork. And just that they get all excited about the entire concept of teaching all over again. And they're like getting into it and stuff like that. I actually had one teacher that postponed her retirement for 5 years because she was like all over a smart notebook and smartboard. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't anticipate it. To be honest with you, she turned around and actually trained a lot of the science teachers in her department. So, and this was a teacher that was on the verge of retirement. So, she had the age and the amount of time in the school district she could have left. She was on the verge, but she stuck around for it. So I just can, I don't know, everything kind of, unfortunately, when it comes to the motivation of actual teaching and everything, it's very intrinsic. And it's, you can only do, as you were, Samantha was talking about, change the language and maybe, change, having, as you were saying, making sure about Maslow before Bloom for our teachers. We can only do so much and no more, because we also have to realize we're also human. And we can only, learn different things. The one thing that I find for me that actually helps is definitely relationships. And Samantha, you hit it. Keisha, you also talked about it. The relationship is so important. I mean, I have, a great relationship with my, principals and also my subject supervisors and stuff like that. And because of that, I find that helps a whole lot. that is where basically you find out who might be dropping through the cracks, possibly. And then basically, you know, it's a situation of then how do you provide the support? Does it mean I reach out to the person, or does it mean that my instructional technology person reaches out to the, or could it be something as simple as just talking to one teacher and saying, hey, I know you know how to do this. You know, can you kind of help out this other teacher next door to you if you don't mind, you know, or stuff like that, you know, and that type of thing. So that way it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's just something that can kind of be, you know, under the radar kind of thing where not everybody has to know and stuff like that. You know, it's like someone just approached me today and they were explaining to me, it's like, I'm a little embarrassed about not knowing how the technology, some of the technology stuff. And I was like, okay, how about this? You and I do a one-to-one, right? You come to my office, right? We'll use, I didn't say use my PC, but we'll use the extra PC that's here, and then we'll do it one-to-one. And he was like, totally, yes, let's do it that way. You know what I mean? Because I don't want him to feel embarrassed about what it is and that what needs to be done. But at the same time, I want to help as much as I can. Right. So I'm squeezing some time out to be able to get this done. Sorry.
That was excellent, excellent comments. I want to also comment one other thing that we've learned along the way from some of the other administrators we've had, instructional technology people. This is for Will's sake, and you guys, I'm going to come back around each of you to comment on this, and that is, it's our experience that when a teacher is refusing to move or change, they're hoping for quote unquote normal to come back, the industrial age model. Number one, they don't understand that space and time has changed in every other industry, and we are in an irrevocable mutation period. And number two, they are personally defending their own successful operation. They've been successful. And so the best thing to do is sort of get into what has worked for you and how can I help you translate that easily into a technical mode. But it starts with, what are you defending? Like, what about your practice has really, you know, sort of been explosively fantastic? Because until we identify for you as a teacher, the things that worked, that you have total legitimacy defending because you saw students learn right in front of your own eyes, you saw that happen. And so you can justify why you don't want to change that, because of course you were successful with that. Let's nail that. Let me just go, you know, give me that. What is it that was successful? And let me go back to my drawing board room over here in instructional technology and try to figure out how to duplicate that in the technology realm. And let me run it by you. Let me just tell me what it is. And let me see if I can figure it out. If I can't, I got it, but I want to help you. Dr. Tillman?
Yes. So, yeah, I've been in situations like that. I mean, prior to COVID, in which I had to, you know, with that relationship building concept, had to bring that person in to have that one-on-one discussion. It wasn't pretty, but I mean, we had to lay it on, you know, lay it on down the line about what was going on. And what ended up happening is, it's like the coaching concept. Everything you're walking them through, each aspect of your lesson plan, the activities, how to switch that over to a virtual concept to make it easier for you. And when you tend to take that type of approach where you bring them in and you just have that one-on-one conversation and perspective and understand where that person's strengths are, where they need help at, you know, determining those things helps you to break down those barriers. In my experience, it helps you to break down those barriers. And once that person can see that they can be successful doing things that they have done in the past, but just tweaking it a little bit to apply now for more success, increased success, has been helpful. Now, this is not an overnight process. It takes time. It takes you being visible in their classes. It takes paperwork, training them on how to, you know, whatever concept that they're working on. But it does take time, and it takes additional effort on my part, which I don't mind. And that's the part of it. You have to have that heart to where you want to see people succeed. You want to help them. You want to give all that you have so they can experience that win. I know our teachers, if they're not going home exhausted, then they didn't do it right. And right now they're exhausted. Seriously, they're exhausted mentally, physically, psychologically. And so we need to make ourselves available for them to help them in that way. They can't have any excuse that they could not achieve success because we're providing those avenues, we're providing those outlets and those opportunities, but we have to be accessible to them.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. I like the word heart. You have to put your heart into it, your love. You have to just love people. Just love them all the way past their barriers so that they get through that and they realize that you're not trying to push them over some sort of cliff they don't want to go over. You're loving them and saying, I'm helping you, I'm holding your hand. Okay, Samantha.
Yeah, I do a lot of, like, my background's been in coaching. So I've done a lot of coaching, and I worked with the Google Dynamic Learning Project for a while as well. And I find they always had you start off your coaching relationship with a teacher just by sort of having like a 20-30 minute session where you just ask them, what's been hard for you this year? And so typically when I start a conversation with a teacher, and it doesn't matter if I go into that conversation knowing that they're one of those teachers who, Will was talking about, that are sort of struggling and maybe don't want to take leaps forward or don't want to be productive, or maybe they want to and they're really eager. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to start by just listening, and I take notes.
Could you also start with what's working for you and then come to what's not working?
Yeah, I'm going to have that whole conversation and take notes, and then I'm going to leave with all of those notes and try to identify one or two things, usually one, that I could come back with. If you can get them on one thing, and sometimes you're going to have to come back 2, 3, 4, 5 times and try to get them on one thing, and they're not going to go with it. But if you can really push through and you can love them through it and you can find one thing, that's really the key that unlocks the door. You just got to find one thing that's going to make their practice better, their life easier, make them be like, okay, all right, I can do this.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I like the idea, and hopefully, Will, you're still listening, of, sort of almost having the attitude of like, as you sort of skate on by in your cheerful mode of like, hey, you kind of almost say like, there's a big wide world of more than 7,000 digital learning apps out there. There's one for you. And there's, like, I don't even know all the apps that could change my life, or the refrigerator that could talk back to me. There's a bajillion things out there. Maybe there's one for you. Kind of an attitude is just really super cool. All right, Sandra.
Well, I don't come from coaching or anything like that, but I have always been part of a team. I was in sports when I was in school and stuff like that. So, but one of the things that I do find is also the ability to, for me anyway, is to treat my teachers as professionals. I say to them, I was like, okay, you're adults and you're professionals. This is not me trying to get a gotcha. This is not me trying to figure out a way that I'm going to put, okay, you did this wrong, as a check mark. And that's not what this is all about. This is basically for you to be a professional at what you do. You have decided to become a teacher because you see this as being something that you're either called to, or it's something that you really want to do, or it's something, whatever it is. This is for basically me to support you to be the best that you could be, so that you would be the best for your kids inside your classroom, or for the community that here in Union as a teacher. And because of that, I look at basically every teacher I try to look at teachers as individuals. One of the things I do find is that my mom told me this many, many years ago. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, therefore listen twice as much as you talk. Didn't seem to get through school when I was in school, but as an adult and an administrator, I definitely have been using it more. But one of the things is that And I try to be very reflective. You know, just like Samantha said, you know, take notes and come back to it, you know, and then see what it is that you do. But you're right about the one thing. You get one thing, they're amazing with one thing. I also include saying for one of the things I always ask also is that with the one thing, it leads to opening other things. So you know, sometimes one of the things that unfortunately I try to remind teachers a lot. I said, you don't have to control every single thing in your classroom. You can actually give certain things in your classroom to your students. Let them turn around and help you. You know what I mean? And everything else. Like, so one of the things I remember speaking to a librarian once when she was teaching some technology skills in my previous school district. I said to her, I was like, have some of the other kids help her. Be your helpers. If they get through it, let them walk around and help each other, you know. They're trying to put in their password or whatever it is. Let them walk around and help each other, you know. I mean, personally, I remember one observation I did. It was really neat. The teacher gave the actual instruction to 5 students inside a class. So because of it, the kids actually taught the entire class. All she did was kind of guide them around it and everything else. And it was an amazing class. And it happened to be that she was teaching coding. So because of that, it was really an amazing, you know, thing to see. So, and the kids, they do things and they come up with discussions and stuff like that. It's that a teacher may not even think about touching, but, you know, it's a teachable moment. So one of the things that I always say is that, okay, you know, you're an adult, and not only that, you're a professional. I know that you may not have a doctorate degree, you know what I mean? And we're not calling you doctor something another, or, you know, Esquire or something another, you know what I mean? You're not a lawyer, whatever it is. You are still a professional. You're at the same level as a doctor in a medical, you know, hospital, as the same as a, you know, lawyer, you know, in a law firm, you know, standing before court, before the judge. You are the same. You are a professional. And I always put back the other part of it also is that you're bringing up professionals.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, I like that. I like that a lot. It's an attitude. I like the attitude. I like the attitude of all 3 of you. I'm in love with all of you now. I think it's amazing what you're all 3 of you guys are doing. And I'm thankful for Will for bringing up what he said. I think, you know, we're probably going to bill this recording as, you know, the best conversation so far on instigating teachers moving forward, because this was really real and gritty. And it's necessary right now because we are retooling the humans everywhere and on an order of magnitude in terms of their technical depth that we could have only dreamed of before. I remember Pomona USD saying once quarantine hit, they'd had a few people using, Accelerate Learning for science. And all of a sudden, you know, 95% of the teachers trained within 24 hours. Amazing shift. Yeah, so, you know, good luck out there for everyone. I think we're going to be wrapping up here pretty quickly. Any last comments, Dr. Tillman?
I would say to those of you who are listening, just make sure that communication, those relationships, there's nothing, in my experience, there is nothing your staff will not do for you if you treat them right. There's nothing. They'll go to the moon if they could for you, if you treat them right. So with that said, be a little, you know, provide a little empathy. Think about them, think about their families, especially during this time. Whatever your priorities are, just make sure that your staff is taken care of to the best of your ability. Those are the words I would like to leave. Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you. Samantha.
I think we've talked a lot about like relationships and how to support people. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of the idea that, you know, above all else, it's culture and it's culture first. And I think that everything that we've talked about really comes back to culture first. So, I mean, even though we're having a discussion about digital learning and whatever we call it in our state, because everyone has a different acronym, it's all about culture, and culture is what creates how we take care of our teachers, right? And how our teachers take care of our students. So I think above all else, don't get sort of bogged down by all of the crazy minutia and all of the details. And remember that that culture matters just as much, even if they're not in the building with you.
Right.
I really like that too, because one of the things that we've been defining as Learning Council is the future of schools is not the purveyor of knowledge alone. It's merely and only a group with a culture. That's what it is, more than it is the purveying of knowledge. I like that a lot. All right, Sandra, last words.
The only thing I would add to what my wonderful colleagues here and hopefully friends now have added is that, yeah, and I totally agree with every comment that has been made here and everything else. And I'm taking back, going to be definitely bringing some of those comments and some of those suggestions in my school district. The one thing I would definitely agree with is the communication part and the culture. Both actually are so important basically for everyone that's a part of this process. And one of the things I do want everybody to kind of remember is that we are going to unprecedented times. I've never been through it, just like Krisha said earlier. And because of that, I think everybody needs to be a little bit more kind, being mindful of each other, gracious, and understanding that we can get through this. The human, I don't know how to put it, but the human
Resiliency.
ability is amazing. And we together, even us on this, everyone here that's listening, everyone here that's on this panel discussion, you know, everyone, the host, everybody here, together we will get through this. And I'm just looking forward to the amazing things that's on the other side.
Me too. Me too. All right. Well, listen, you guys, thank you so much for being together with Learning Council and EduJedi Leadership Society today. We're going to be, of course, putting this through an edit cycle and then getting it out nationally for our 215,000 readers and all the EduJedi leadership. So I just want to thank you so much. Keep up the good work. One day, Learning Council is going to be out in a neighborhood again near you with live physical events where we probably still won't be allowed to hug, but we'll be able to look each other in the eye and give big smiles, right? Maybe even with masks on, but who knows? But anyway, adore all of you. Thank you all so much. Thanks to all of our listeners that have been on the line today. I'm going to do a last shout out and thank you to CommScope Ruckus, who's been doing some amazing work on equity and access, which has been amazing, and all the other companies that sponsored us for this particular tour. And final word is thank you to all, and I'm going to release you back into the wild to deal with all of this as you see fit, and hopefully you'll continue being awesome. Thanks again. Bye for now, everyone.